are joining us at the Property Investor Show Autumn Edition. It's so great to be back at in-person events. There's a real buzz here, and as always, it attracts the premier commentators in property. And my first guest is Rowan. And Graham, it's always lovely to see you, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, it's just so fantastic to be able to meet face to face again, and it's great to have the show back on the scene.
Absolutely. I think for me the main thing is there's so many people here. You know, I had visions of us standing talking to ourselves here, you know, and actually it's already on Friday morning really crowded. So I think everyone's thinking, thank goodness we can get back to normal, get out there, meet people. I've met some old friends here this morning and lots of new people as well. So yeah, it's great to be just out back to some kind of normality.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you talk about a lot in your various wearing your various different investment hats is risk mitigation. And we've always said how important the show is from an educational point of view, but you know, now we're post COVID-19, we're potentially going into some serious economic meltdown, potential, you know, interest rate rises, etc. I'm sure you'll agree that, you know, education has never been more important, and you know, landlords can't work with you know, weak business models anymore.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I'm now halfway through my 7th decade, and I think for me this is probably going to be one of the most interesting but also one of the most challenging decades of all. I think there's going to be enormous opportunity in the 2020s, but I also think there's all kinds of risks, systemic risks that people aren't that aware of. You know, there's been, so for example, obviously our debt mountain is higher than it's ever been, and after the latest announcements of this new NHS levy, we now have taxation at the highest level since 1948. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of demands on particularly the people who've accumulated some assets. A lot of the people that we all know and love are property investors. They're sitting on capital gains, they're sitting on equity, and the politicians are going to be coming after those people. I mean, obviously we've had the 5 or 6 year vendetta against landlords, as you know, but it ain't going to end now, because in America, Janet Yellen is talking about unrealized capital gains as some kind of source of income. So they want to tax unrealized gains. That's how desperate they're getting. So if it starts in America, it'll be coming here. So if you're a landlord, if you're a property investor with a lot of equity in your portfolio, you've really got to start thinking about your tax planning strategy, and even, dare I say it, you know, your country and lifestyle planning strategy.
Graham, you're scaring me. But, you know, yes, we've got to be aware of all these things. Nobody really knows how it's going to pan out, but we have to have that awareness. And as you said, I think, you know, tax planning is going to be absolutely vital. Well, it has been, but even more so. Landlords can't be kind of, you know, lackadaisical anymore. They've got to treat it as a profession, as a business, and that's so much of what the show's about.
No, absolutely. Part of it is getting the right structure in place. Part of it is getting the right specialist advice. And one of the things that always amuses me, I often speak to people who must be worth, you know, quite a few £1 million by the time you look at their whole portfolio, and they are so reluctant to pay fees to specialist advisors. They hate it. And, you know, these guys, for the sake of a few £1,000s, can save you hundreds of thousands of pounds. And when it comes to, a few years ago, I had a client where we had a specialist tax advisor who just got them to sign a few pieces of paper regarding inheritance tax, and he saved him £2.5 million for a cost of a few thousand. But he was so annoyed about paying those fees. I think, well, look, you know, get over it. You just got to hire these guys. Their business model is you pay them by the hour, so just pay the money and get on with it. But I think more than that now, I'm seeing people having to start taking a more international view as to where they want to base themselves, because it's only going to get worse in terms of, you know, the government taking more and more from those who have assets, because it's politically expedient to go after the rich. And of course, anyone with more than the average income now is going to be regarded as wealthy. So yeah, I've been preaching for some years now that you've got to have a plan B. And, you know, there are several different places you can go with second residencies or citizenships, and you can think about maybe changing your tax residency. And I would say to people, look, even if you've never considered it before, now is the time to at least do some research. At least ask the question, what else could I do? Where else could I go if things got so bad? Because, it's already the worst tax burden for 70 years. If you earn between 100 and 130,000, you are now paying 63.5% tax. And so we're almost back to the days of the 1960s when the Beatles were singing, one for me, 19 for you. So, we're going back that way now. So now's the time to get your ducks in a row, think about your tax planning, and think about the bigger picture in terms of where you want to live and where you want your children to live in the decades to come.
Well, this kind of harks back to the series that we did together, Surviving in the New Economy, and I will put some links to that below this video because, Graham, I have to say, from my perspective, I think it was one of the most valuable content collaborations we've ever done. And your words of wisdom, it was almost like you actually had a crystal ball as what has transpired. You mentioned in that series about thinking about becoming a global citizen, and I can understand your reasoning behind that. You mentioned just now opportunities for property investors. Where do you see those?
I think, one of the things we're doing here, for example, is introducing people directly to developers in joint ventures where they become a shareholder in the SPV company that actually does the project. So I think with the right developers and the right model, you can still make very good money in property. One of the things we are particularly concerned about is the right legal agreement between you, the investor, and the developer. So, for example, if the market was to come back a bit in the next 12, 18 months during the project, what do you do about it? How do you account for that in the agreement? So we've built in things like the ability to go for a buy-to-let refinancing so that you rent the place out rather than sell it at a loss. So you have to start looking at what are the possibilities over the next 18 months and how can you effectively try to deal with them in the agreement up front so there's no surprises later. So I think always with property, it's kind of finding the right developer and the right project. And what we've found is that sometimes even developers who meet our due diligence criteria, some of their projects will work for us and some won't. So we look at every single project and then we try and match it to the right investor. And as an investor, you've got to try and just kind of know what your objectives are, because we've had some people get involved where they start out saying, I just want to buy it, invest to sell and take the profit. And then halfway through they say, no, actually, I think I might want to keep it. Well, you've got to know what you want because that's a very different project. So, know yourself, know what you're getting into. And I think, UK property has still got plenty of potential, despite all the government changes and taxes and all the rest of it. We won't rehearse all those arguments again now. But also, start looking overseas. I'm doing a lot of work in Portugal at the moment, and there's a lot of opportunities out there because Brits, now that we're outside the EU, we can apply for a thing called a D7 visa to Portugal, which is far cheaper than the golden visa where you had to spend $350,000 or $500,000 on property. And you can get a visa. They have a non-habitual residence tax scheme where you can pay just 10% income on things like dividends and pensions. So, start looking for some of these things a bit outside your comfort zone. Just do the research. You'll find there's a new one just been announced in Hungary, I think, this week. There are citizenship by investment programs, there are residency schemes, and all of those countries often they're offering this because they're still in a development mode, they're looking for new capital, and that means there's new property development opportunities in those countries as well. I was talking to somebody just this week who wants to build a kind of retirement village in the Algarve in Portugal. There are loads of quite wealthy Brits down there. Quite a few of them are aging. They don't want to come back home. But they probably need a little bit of support on site, maybe a GP surgery or a pharmacy or whatever. So there's those kind of opportunities for people that are prepared to just think a little bit outside their comfort zone. Maybe get on a plane, go and have a look, and then find the right perhaps local partner to work with. And you could build a whole new business in a sunny climate with a favourable tax regime.
Well, that is Property Connections that Graham is talking about, and we've actually got some content from Property Connections, and I will put that underneath the video as well if you're interested to explore that further. But Graham, you've been causing controversy on Property Tribes again.
Oh no!
Yes,
Shock horror.
you have. with your series of videos about Monaco.
Right.
One of them has had over 150 comments and very divisive opinions and so on. But what I love about what you do, Graham, is you make people think. You make them explore wider horizons. And I think, as you've so rightly said, people that are going to stay stuck in their old ruts are going to miss opportunity and perhaps, be exposed to higher risks.
Well, yeah, and I think there's an awful lot of, dare I say, ignorance around things like Monaco and why people would go to somewhere like Monaco. Because the question I would ask is, do you think these thousands of wealthy people with access to the best advice in the world are all stupid? Why do you think they go and pay these prices in Monaco? And the answer, if you look at it, is that A, it has a great track record of capital gains over the years. B, you can get access to some really cheap financing over there, very low interest-only mortgages. So you can get ownership and control of a property at a relatively low monthly cost and watch it go up in capital value, because you have the ultimate there of a captive market. You've got a very small, a 2 square kilometre area. That's never going to change, although, to be fair, they are reclaiming land from the sea, so they're moving outwards. But people that live there get the tax benefits, they get the property benefits. They don't have to be there the whole time. They do have to be there some of the time. It's not like these Caribbean things where you just have to turn up one day a year. You do have to be prepared to spend time. But hey, 300 days of sunshine, come on, it's not a bad place to live. All these billionaires can't be that stupid. And one of the things I always say to people is, you don't have to be a billionaire to learn lessons from billionaires and to live like a billionaire. And what they all have is more than one place to go. They all have choices and options, and you can do that, not necessarily in Monaco, I accept that's not for everybody, but there are places where you can get a low-cost property in a low-tax country, and you can have a choice of where to go. And, what's your plan B is my argument. And with Monaco, yeah, that's the ultimate, it's the world's favourite tax haven, but it only works for certain people. And part of what I do is to assess whether it's right for people. And it's certainly not right for everyone, but for the people that it works for, it works incredibly well, which is why so many people go there and why you're paying up to 65,000 euros a square metre to live there. So they're not all stupid people, and I would say just keep an open mind and see what you can learn from them, rather than falling victim to the politics of envy and saying, they've got more money than sense, because that simply isn't true.
Well, as always, food for thought from Graham. We're at the Property Investor Show in London, but you can come and meet somebody like Graham and learn how to be a global citizen. Graham, thank you so much for being part of the Property Tribes interview, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the show, and let's hope that it continues to have this tremendous buzz that we can hear this morning.
Thanks very much, Vanessa.
Thank you.